Close your eyes and let your breath flow as naturally as mountain mist, drifting through ancient forests where secrets wait to be discovered. Tonight we embark on a journey that spans millennia, crosses continents, and transforms civilizations, all through the gentle power of a simple leaf, a leaf that would awaken minds without disturbing the soul, that would create rituals of peace in a world often torn by conflict, that would connect emperor and peasant, monastery and marketplace, east and west, through the shared moment of quiet contemplation that comes with each perfect cup. Let the tensions of your day dissolve like honey in warm water. Feel your shoulders relax, your breathing slow, as we begin this gentle voyage through time, following the path of tea from its mystical beginnings in misty mountain temples to its place at the heart of civilizations around the world. This is the story of transformation, not through conquest or force, but through the quiet miracle of shared ritual, of moments of peace, of the simple act of brewing leaves in hot water, and discovering in that ancient alchemy something that nourishes not just the body, but the very soul itself. Chapter 1: The Sacred Origins. Breathe deeply and let yourself drift back through time, back to the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient China, where legend and history intertwine like morning clouds around sacred peaks. In the year 2737 BCE, according to the whispered stories passed down through countless generations, the divine Emperor Shen Nung sat beneath the shade of a wild tea tree. The air was still and warm, carrying the sweet scent of mountain flowers and the distant sound of flowing water. As he rested, seeking respite from his travels through his vast realm, the emperor's servant prepared a simple meal of boiled water over a crackling fire. The smoke rose gently, carrying sparks that danced like fireflies in the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves above. And then, as if guided by the hand of destiny itself, a gentle breeze stirred the branches, and a few delicate leaves broke free, floating down like green butterflies to land softly in the emperor's cup of hot water. Watch as the leaves slowly unfurl in the steaming water, releasing their essence in graceful spirals of amber and gold. The emperor, curious about this unexpected transformation, lifted the cup to his lips and tasted something entirely new, something that seemed to carry within it the very essence of the mountain. The whisper of wind through leaves, the patient wisdom of ancient trees. The effect was immediate and profound. His mind became clear as morning dew. His spirit lifted like mist rising from a sun-warmed valley. And in that single, perfect moment, tea was born into human consciousness. But this was more than just the discovery of a pleasant beverage. In the gentle awakening that followed, Emperor Shen Nung recognized something sacred, something that could bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine, between the busy mind and the peaceful heart. Feel your own breathing synchronize with this ancient moment. Let the peace of that first cup flow through you, connecting you to all who have found solace in tea's gentle embrace. As word of this miraculous leaf spread through the emperor's court, it was first embraced by Taoist monks high in their mountain monasteries. These wise seekers, devoted to understanding the natural flow of life, recognized in tea a perfect companion for meditation. Unlike wine, which clouded the mind, or harsh stimulants that jangled the nerves, tea brought clarity without agitation, wakefulness without anxiety, presence without restlessness. In the cool morning hours before dawn, As the first birds began their gentle songs and mist still clung to the mountain slopes, the monks would gather in their simple halls. With movements as fluid as flowing water, they would prepare their tea, each gesture deliberate yet effortless. Each step in the process a form of moving meditation, the careful selection of leaves, the gentle heating of water to just the perfect temperature, the patient waiting as the tea steeped, the mindful lifting of cup to lip. Each action became a prayer without words, a communion with the present moment that opened doorways to deeper understanding. Imagine yourself in that peaceful monastery. Feel the smooth ceramic of a tea bowl warming your palms. Notice how the simple act of holding a cup can center your entire being. For these early practitioners, tea was never merely about the drinking. It was about the ritual, the pause in life's constant movement, the creation of sacred space in ordinary time. They discovered that in slowing down to truly taste their tea, to feel its warmth, to notice its subtle flavors changing with each sip, they could access states of consciousness that had previously required hours of formal meditation. The tea became their teacher, showing them how profound truth could be found in the simplest experiences, how enlightenment might be discovered not in exotic practices or complex philosophies, but in the quiet appreciation of a single leaf's gift to humanity. And so tea began its first great transformation, from wild plant to sacred tool, from simple beverage to doorway to transcendence. In the hands of these early spiritual practitioners, it developed its first rituals, its first ceremonies, its first recognition as something that could elevate the human experience from the mundane to the sublime. Let this ancient wisdom settle into your own experience. Feel how even now, the simple thought of tea can slow your mind, can create a pocket of peace in your day, can remind you that enlightenment is always as close as your next conscious breath. Chapter 2: The Art of Ceremony. Allow your awareness to drift forward through the centuries. Feel yourself floating like morning mist through time, arriving in the elegant courts of the Tang dynasty, where tea has evolved from monastic simplicity into an art form of exquisite beauty. It is the 8th century now, and tea has traveled from mountain monastery to imperial palace, from humble ritual to sophisticated ceremony. The air shimmers with possibility as we enter the refined world of Tang Dynasty China, where every aspect of life has become an opportunity for artistic expression. And tea has found its place at the very center of this cultural flowering. Breathe in the atmosphere. Smell the delicate incense. Hear the soft whisper of silk robes and the gentle tinkle of fine porcelain. In this world of poets and scholars, of painters and philosophers, a young man named Lu Yu has dedicated his life to understanding the deepest mysteries of tea. Born to humble circumstances but blessed with a sensitive soul and an extraordinary palate, Lu Yu has spent decades traveling throughout China, visiting remote mountain gardens where tea grows wild, learning from masters who guard their secrets jealously, tasting waters from famous springs and comparing their effect on different teas. Watch as Lu Yu kneels gracefully beside a low table, his movements precise yet flowing, like calligraphy written in air. Before him lies an array of tools that would seem magical to modern eyes, each piece carefully crafted for its specific purpose in the tea ceremony. Each element chosen not just for function but for the way it contributes to the total aesthetic experience. There is the cha bei, the elegant white porcelain cup that shows the tea's color to perfect advantage. The cha hu, the small clay teapot whose porous walls will season over years of use, becoming more perfect with each brewing, the cha zi, the bamboo scoop worn smooth by countless careful measurements, the cha lu, the water kettle whose metal has been chosen for the specific sound it makes as the water approaches the perfect temperature. Feel the reverence in each object. Notice how even utilitarian items can become sacred when approached with proper attention. Luyu lifts the tea leaves with ceremonial care. These are not the simple wild leaves of earlier times, but carefully cultivated and processed tea, each leaf selected for its perfect shape, dried using techniques that have been refined over generations, stored in special containers that preserve their essence like precious jewels. The water itself is a crucial element of the ceremony. Luyu has written extensively about water, how water from different sources affects the tea differently, how the temperature must be just right, not so cool that it fails to extract the tea's essence, not so hot that it burns the delicate leaves and creates bitterness. Listen to the water as it heats. Notice how the sound changes. First the tiny bubbles like fish eyes, then the string of pearls, finally the rolling boil that must immediately be reduced to the perfect temperature. As the water reaches its optimal heat, Luyu performs the first brewing with movements that are both precise and poetic. The hot water meets the tea leaves, and immediately the alchemy begins, colors spiraling through the liquid like captured sunlight, aromas rising in complex layers that speak of the mountain where the tea grew, the seasonal rains that nourished it, the hands that harvested it with care. But this ceremony is about far more than creating the perfect cup of tea. It is about transformation, about turning a simple physical act into something that engages all the senses, that elevates both server and recipient into a state of heightened awareness and appreciation. Feel yourself entering this heightened state. Notice how when we pay complete attention to any activity, it becomes a form of meditation, a gateway to presence. Each step of Luyu's ceremony has deeper meaning. The careful cleaning of the implements represents the purification of mind and heart necessary for true appreciation. The precise measurement of tea speaks to the balance required in all aspects of life. The patient waiting for the proper steeping time teaches us about the value of allowing natural processes to unfold in their own time. And when finally the tea is poured, when the first cup is offered with both hands and received with gratitude, when the first sip is taken with complete attention, something magical occurs. The boundary between server and served dissolves. The distinction between the tea, the drinker, and the moment of drinking fades away. There is only pure experience, pure presence, pure appreciation for this simple miracle of leaf and water and human consciousness coming together in perfect harmony. Let yourself sink into this perfect moment. Feel how ceremony creates sacred space, how ritual can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Luyu's great gift to the world was not just his mastery of tea preparation, but his recognition that the way we do anything reflects who we are becoming. In his classic text, the Cha Jing or Tea Classic, he wrote not just about techniques and recipes, but about philosophy and spirituality, about how the humble act of making tea could become a path to wisdom and enlightenment. He understood that tea ceremony was really about presence, about bringing complete attention to each moment, about honoring the interconnectedness of all things through the simple recognition that this cup of tea exists only because of countless factors coming together: the rain and sun that nourished the plant, the soil that gave it minerals, the farmer who tended it, the hands that processed it, the fire that heated the water. the vessel that holds it. Feel this interconnectedness in your own being. Recognize how you too are part of this vast web of relationships. How your appreciation of tea connects you to all beings across time and space who have found peace in this simple ritual. Through Lu Yu's influence, tea ceremony became a cornerstone of Chinese culture, not just for the wealthy and educated, but for anyone who sought to bring more beauty, more mindfulness, more conscious appreciation into their daily life. The tea ceremony became a moving meditation, a practice of presence that could be done anywhere, anytime, with anyone willing to slow down and pay attention to the miracle of the present moment. And from this foundation of ceremony and mindfulness, tea prepared to make its next great journey, to cross borders and cultures, to adapt to new lands and peoples while retaining its essential gift of peace and presence. Chapter 3: Gardens in the Mist. Let your consciousness drift now to the verdant hillsides of ancient China, where morning mist clings to terraced mountainsides like silk scarves draped over sleeping dragons. Feel the cool, pure air fill your lungs. Smell the rich, dark earth and the sweet green scent of tea plants awakening to another day. Here, in gardens that seem to float between earth and sky, tea cultivation has evolved into something approaching religious devotion. These are not mere commercial enterprises, but sacred spaces where humans and nature collaborate in perfect harmony to create something of transcendent beauty. Breathe deeply and let yourself become part of this ancient landscape. Feel your feet on the misty mountain paths, your hands touching leaves still heavy with morning dew. The tea master Chun Wei rises before dawn, as his father did, and his father's father before him. This garden has been tended by his family for 17 generations, each passing down not just techniques and knowledge, but a deep understanding of the subtle relationship between human intention and natural growth. In the pre-dawn darkness, Chun Wei moves silently through his terraced garden like a ghost among the sleeping tea bushes. He knows each plant individually, understands their subtle differences in character and timing, can sense by touch and smell which leaves are ready for harvest and which need more time to develop their full potential. The tea plants themselves seem almost magical in their adaptation to this mountain environment. Their roots reach deep into mineral-rich soil. Their leaves have evolved to thrive in the cool, misty air. Their growth patterns shaped by centuries of careful cultivation that enhances their natural tendencies while respecting their essential wild nature. Feel the wisdom in this collaboration. Notice how true mastery comes not from dominating nature, but from understanding and working with its deeper patterns. As the first pale light begins to filter through the mist, Chun Wei begins the day's first harvest. His movements are meditation in motion, each leaf selected with the care of an artist choosing pigments for a masterpiece. He knows that the time of day, the weather conditions, even his own state of mind will affect the quality of the tea that emerges from these leaves. The young leaves and buds, still tender from the night's rest, release their essence at his touch. These will become the finest tea, prized not just for their flavor but for their ability to carry the very essence of this place. This moment, this perfect intersection of human skill and natural gift. Allow yourself to experience this intersection. Feel how mastery arises from the marriage of technique and intuition, of knowledge and presence. But Chun Wei's work is far from finished when the leaves are gathered. The processing that follows is an art form that has been refined over millennia, each step carefully calibrated to bring out the tea's inherent character while adding layers of complexity that speak to the processor's skill and understanding. Some leaves will be allowed to wither slowly in the mountain air, their moisture content gradually reducing while their flavors concentrate and deepen. Others will be fired immediately to preserve their fresh, green vitality. Still others will undergo partial oxidation, a delicate process that requires constant attention and perfect timing, creating teas that bridge the gap between green and black, offering the brightness of one and the depth of the other. Notice the parallels to human development, how we too must sometimes preserve our essential nature while allowing other aspects to transform and deepen, how wisdom comes from knowing when to hold on and when to let go. The firing of the tea leaves is perhaps the most critical moment in the entire process. Too little heat, and the leaves will not develop their full character. Too much, and their delicate essence will be destroyed. Chun Wei tends his firing pans with the attention of a meditation master, feeling the heat with his hands, judging the precise moment when the leaves have reached their perfect state of transformation. The sound tells him as much as the sight, the gentle crackling as moisture leaves the leaves, the subtle change in tone that indicates the cellular structure is being perfectly preserved. The aroma guides him too, the fresh green scent gradually giving way to something richer, more complex, notes of flowers and fruits, and the deep earthiness of the mountain itself. Let these aromas fill your own awareness. Notice how scent can transport us instantly across time and space, connecting us to experiences and places far beyond our immediate physical presence. When the processing is complete, Chun Wei carefully stores the finished tea in containers that have been chosen specifically for their ability to preserve and enhance the tea's character. Some teas will be enjoyed immediately, their fresh vibrancy captured at its peak. Others will be aged, allowed to slowly transform over months or years, developing complexity and depth like fine wine or aged cheese. This is the miracle of the tea garden. This understanding that time itself can be an ingredient, that patience and proper storage can allow tea to continue evolving even after it has left the plant, creating flavors and experiences that could never be achieved through processing alone. Feel the wisdom in this patience. Consider how your own life continues to develop and deepen when given proper attention and time. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Chun Wei's garden is not the technical mastery or even the extraordinary quality of the tea it produces. It is the consciousness that permeates every aspect of the work, the recognition that they are not just growing a commercial crop, but participating in an ancient dialogue between human intention and natural wisdom. Every decision in the garden is made with awareness of its effects not just on this season's harvest, but on the long-term health of the plants, the soil, the entire ecosystem. The tea plants are seen not as resources to be exploited, but as partners in a collaborative creation that benefits all parties. This holistic approach creates tea that carries within it something beyond mere flavor, something that speaks to the deeper aspects of human consciousness, something that connects those who drink it to the peaceful wisdom of the mountain, to the patient skill of generations of growers, to the eternal dance of seasons and weather and human intention that makes each cup possible. Let this holistic awareness infuse your own experience. Recognize how every choice we make ripples outward, affecting not just our immediate environment but connecting us to vast networks of relationship and mutual influence. From these misty gardens, tea begins its next great journey, carried by merchants and pilgrims along ancient trade routes, spreading its gifts of peace and presence to new cultures and civilizations, adapting to new climates and customs while retaining its essential power to transform ordinary moments into occasions of beauty and transcendence. Chapter 4: The Silk Road and Sacred Journeys. Feel yourself now in the saddle of a camel, swaying gently as your caravan winds through mountain passes and desert plains. The Silk Road stretches before you like a ribbon connecting east to west, and in your carefully wrapped bundles lies treasure more precious than silk or spices: the concentrated essence of tea. The year is 850 CE, and you are traveling with a merchant caravan that carries within it the dreams and hopes of a dozen civilizations. The rhythmic padding of camel feet creates a meditation all its own. The vast sky overhead speaks of infinite possibility, and the precious cargo of tea leaves represents humanity's first truly global luxury. The first product that could inspire people to cross continents and brave unimaginable hardships simply for the privilege of experiencing something beautiful. Let the gentle swaying motion soothe your nervous system. Feel how travel itself can become a form of moving meditation, how the journey becomes as important as the destination. Your fellow travelers are as diverse as the landscape you traverse. There is Hassan, the Persian merchant whose eyes light up when he speaks of the tea ceremonies in Isfahan. His voice painting pictures of elegant halls where poets gather to share verses over cups of perfectly brewed tea. Beside him rides Mikhail, the Russian trader who tells stories of how tea has begun to transform the long, dark winters of his homeland, bringing warmth and comfort to families huddled around their samovars. Each culture that encounters tea receives it differently, yet each recognizes in it the same essential qualities that first attracted the Chinese monks centuries ago: the gift of presence, the ability to transform ordinary time into sacred time, the mysterious power to awaken the mind while calming the spirit. Notice how universal truths can express themselves in countless cultural forms, how the essential message of tea adapts to each new context while retaining its core wisdom. As your caravan crests a mountain pass, you can see spread below you one of the great cities of the Silk Road, its minarets reaching toward heaven, its marketplaces bustling with the energy of international trade, its tea houses already beginning to establish themselves as centers of culture and conversation. In these cosmopolitan oases, tea encounters new brewing methods, new serving customs, new philosophical frameworks for understanding its gifts. The careful precision of Chinese ceremony gives way to the generous hospitality of Persian tradition. The meditative silence of Buddhist practice finds new expression in the animated conversation of Islamic coffee houses adapting to accommodate this new beverage. Feel the creative energy in this cultural mixing. Sense how tradition stays alive not by remaining rigid, but by adapting and evolving while maintaining its essential spirit. The Persian masters developed their own approach to tea preparation, using brass samovars that keep water at the perfect temperature throughout the day, serving tea in small glass cups that show off its beautiful color, offering it with sugar and sometimes with cardamom or other spices that complement rather than overwhelm its delicate character. In these Persian tea houses, scholars and poets gather to discuss philosophy and literature. Merchants close deals with handshakes over shared cups. Travelers find refreshment and companionship after long days on the road. Tea becomes the universal language, the common ground where different cultures can meet and find mutual appreciation and understanding. Allow yourself to experience this universal quality of tea. Feel how it creates instant common ground between strangers, how sharing tea can dissolve barriers of language, culture, and background. But tea's journey along the Silk Road is about more than just trade and commerce. It is also carried by pilgrims and holy men, Buddhist monks traveling to study in foreign monasteries, Sufi mystics wandering in search of divine truth, Christian missionaries venturing into unknown lands to spread their faith. For these spiritual travelers, tea serves an even deeper purpose. It provides not just physical refreshment, but spiritual sustenance, a portable practice that can create sacred space anywhere, a reliable method for achieving the mental clarity and emotional balance necessary for spiritual work. The Buddhist monks discover that tea ceremonies can enhance their meditation practices, helping them achieve states of alert relaxation that are perfect for contemplative work. The Sufi mystics find that tea supports their long nights of dhikr, their repetitive prayers that induce mystical states of consciousness. Even Christian monastics begin to incorporate tea into their devotional practices, using the careful preparation and mindful consumption as forms of prayer and communion with the divine. Feel how tea transcends religious boundaries, how its essential gift of presence and peace speaks to the mystical core that underlies all authentic spiritual traditions. As these spiritual communities embrace tea, they develop their own unique approaches to its preparation and consumption. Tibetan monks create butter tea, a rich, nourishing beverage that provides sustenance in their harsh mountain environment while supporting their intensive meditation retreats. Islamic mystics develop elaborate ceremonies that incorporate tea into their dhikr practices, using the rhythm of pouring and serving as a form of moving meditation. Each tradition finds in tea exactly what it needs. Christians discover contemplative prayer. Muslims find enhancement for their dhikr. Buddhists encounter support for their mindfulness practice. Taoists recognize a perfect expression of Wu Wei, effortless action that flows in harmony with natural patterns. Notice how authentic spiritual practice always leads to the same essential discoveries. How different paths up the mountain all reveal the same fundamental truths about presence, compassion, and connection. The trade routes that carry tea also carry stories, legends that grow and evolve with each telling tales of magical teas that can cure any illness, of master tea makers who can read a person's character in their choice of tea, of mystical gardens where the tea plants themselves are conscious and can communicate with those who approach them with proper reverence. These stories, whether literally true or mythologically meaningful, serve an important purpose. They preserve and transmit the essential understanding that tea is more than just a beverage, that it carries within it something sacred, something that can serve as a bridge between the mundane and the transcendent. Let yourself be touched by the power of story and myth. Recognize how the deepest truths are often best preserved not in literal facts, but in the symbolic language that speaks directly to the soul. By the time tea has traveled the full length of the Silk Road, it has been transformed from a regional specialty into a global phenomenon. But more importantly, it has proven its ability to adapt to any culture while maintaining its essential character, to serve any spiritual tradition while remaining true to its core gift of peace and presence. The stage is now set for tea's next great adventure, its journey across the vast expanse of ocean to encounter entirely new civilizations, to face challenges that will test its adaptability to the utmost. and to prove once again that the simple act of brewing leaves in hot water contains within it something that speaks to the deepest needs of the human heart. Chapter 5. The Island of the Rising Sun. Let your awareness float now across the sea. Feel the gentle rocking of waves beneath you. Taste the salt air on your lips as we approach the misty shores of Japan, where tea is about to undergo perhaps its most profound transformation, evolving from a borrowed practice into something uniquely and quintessentially Japanese. It is the 12th century, and Zen Buddhist monks returning from studies in China carry with them more than just scrolls of sacred texts. Hidden carefully in their traveling bundles are small packets of tea seeds, gifts from their Chinese teachers that will soon take root in Japanese soil and Japanese consciousness, growing into something that will profoundly shape the spiritual and aesthetic life of an entire civilization. Breathe in the clean mountain air of ancient Japan. Feel the reverent silence of forest temples. Sense the profound attention to beauty and detail that characterizes Japanese culture. The monk Eisai kneels in his monastery garden, carefully planting the precious tea seeds he has carried across the sea. Each seed is placed with the same devotion he brings to his meditation practice, each one a potential bridge between the earthly and the transcendent. As he covers the seeds with rich, dark soil, he whispers prayers for their growth and for the wisdom they might bring to his adopted homeland. But Eisai understands that he is planting more than just seeds. He is introducing to Japan a practice that could revolutionize Japanese spirituality, offering a form of meditation that is both active and contemplative, both practical and transcendent. In his writings, he describes tea as a medicine for both body and soul, a way of achieving the mental clarity and spiritual alertness that are essential for Zen practice. Feel the anticipation in this moment of planting. Sense how every true innovation requires both faith in unseen possibilities and patient tending of small beginnings. As the tea plants take root in Japanese soil, they begin to adapt to their new environment, developing characteristics that reflect the unique climate and culture of their adopted home. The Japanese soil is different from that of China, the weather patterns distinct, the aesthetic sensibilities of the people unlike anything tea has encountered before. Under the influence of Japanese Zen Buddhism, tea begins to evolve in directions that even you could never have imagined. The elaborate ceremonies of Tang Dynasty China give way to something starker, more austere, more focused on the essential rather than the decorative. Every element that is not absolutely necessary is gradually stripped away, until only the core experience remains. Allow yourself to appreciate this aesthetic of simplicity. Notice how removing the unnecessary can reveal the truly essential. How restraint can be a form of expression more powerful than elaboration. In the hands of Japanese tea masters, the preparation and serving of tea becomes wabi-sabi made manifest. The art of finding beauty in imperfection, of discovering profound meaning in simple, everyday activities. The tea bowls are no longer perfect porcelain vessels, but humble ceramic creations that bear the marks of their making, the traces of human hands and the unpredictable effects of fire and earth. This is not accidental. The Japanese tea masters understand that perfection can distance us from experience, that flawless beauty can create a barrier between observer and observed. Instead, they seek to create implements and environments that invite participation, that welcome the drinker into an intimate relationship with the tea, the moment, and their own deepest nature. Feel how this imperfect beauty speaks to something deep within human nature. Notice how we often feel more connected to things that show their humanity, their vulnerability, their authentic character. The development of the Japanese tea ceremony reaches its pinnacle in the work of Sen no Rikyu, a master whose influence on Japanese culture extends far beyond the realm of tea. Under his guidance, the tea ceremony becomes a complete artistic and spiritual discipline, a way of life that encompasses architecture, gardening, poetry, philosophy, and meditation. Rikyu's tea rooms are tiny spaces, barely large enough for a few people to sit comfortably. The entrance is so low that even the highest-ranking samurai must crawl to enter. A physical reminder that, in the tea room, all worldly hierarchies dissolve. Inside, the decorations are minimal, perhaps a single flower in a simple vase, a scroll with a few characters expressing some profound truth about the nature of existence. Imagine yourself crawling through that low entrance. Feel how this simple action can shift your consciousness, can remind you to approach the sacred with humility and openness. In this intimate space, Rikyu develops the 4 principles that will guide Japanese tea ceremony for centuries to come. Wa, harmony, the recognition that tea ceremony is about creating perfect balance between all elements, people, implements, environment, and moment. K, respect, the understanding that every participant, every object, every aspect of the ceremony deserves complete appreciation and attention. Say, purity, not just the physical cleanliness of implements and space, but the purification of heart and mind that allows true appreciation to emerge. And finally, Jaku, tranquility, the deep peace that arises naturally when harmony, respect, and purity are present. The silence that is fuller and more meaningful than any words. Let these principles settle into your own awareness. Consider how they might transform not just tea drinking, but every aspect of daily life. The movements of the Japanese tea ceremony become a form of meditation in action. Each gesture carefully prescribed yet performed with complete presence and attention. The cleaning of the tea implements becomes a ritual of purification. The measuring of tea powder a lesson in precision and care. The whisking of the tea a dance that creates perfect froth through perfect attention to rhythm and technique. But the true genius of the Japanese approach lies not in the technical perfection of these movements, but in their psychological and spiritual effects. By requiring complete attention to simple physical actions, the ceremony naturally quiets the chattering mind. By demanding precise timing and coordination, it brings all participants into the present moment. By creating beauty through care and attention, it reveals how ordinary activities can become extraordinary through the application of conscious awareness. Feel yourself performing these careful movements. Notice how giving complete attention to simple actions can become a doorway into meditative states. How mastery of form can lead to freedom of spirit. The Japanese also develop new forms of tea that reflect their unique aesthetic sensibilities. Matcha, powdered green tea that is whisked into a frothy jade liquid, becomes the centerpiece of formal ceremony. Its preparation requires complete attention and considerable skill. Its flavor is intense and complex. Its effects both energizing and calming. But they also develop simpler forms of tea service, ways of incorporating the essential spirit of tea ceremony into daily life without the formal requirements of the full ritual. The casual sharing of tea between friends, the quiet moment of solitude with a cup of green tea at the end of a busy day. the portable tea ceremony that can be performed anywhere with minimal equipment. Appreciate this balance between formal practice and casual enjoyment. Notice how true mastery expresses itself both in perfect ceremony and in natural, effortless simplicity. Through the Japanese transformation, tea proves once again its remarkable adaptability. Its ability to take root in any culture and express that culture's deepest values while retaining its essential character. In Japan, tea becomes a vehicle for expressing the Buddhist understanding of impermanence, the Zen appreciation for direct experience, the Japanese aesthetic of finding extraordinary beauty in ordinary moments. But perhaps most importantly, the Japanese tea ceremony establishes a template that will influence tea culture throughout the world. The understanding that tea is not just about the beverage, but about creating space for presence, for connection, for the kind of deep appreciation that can transform any moment into something sacred and meaningful. From these quiet Japanese tea rooms, tea prepares for its next great journey, westward across vast oceans to encounter cultures that will challenge it in entirely new ways, that will test its ability to maintain its essential gifts while adapting to radically different social structures and ways of being. Chapter 6: Westward Winds. Feel yourself now on the deck of a great sailing ship, the salt spray on your face, the wind filling the canvas sails above you, as we cross vast oceans toward the unknown shores of Europe. In the ship's hold, carefully protected from moisture and damage, lie chests of tea that will soon transform Western civilization. The Portuguese merchants who first bring tea to European shores in the 16th century could never have imagined the revolution they were carrying in their cargo holds. They saw only another exotic commodity, another luxury that might appeal to the wealthy elite of European courts. They could not foresee that this simple leaf would reshape social customs, inspire new forms of architecture, create entirely new industries, and ultimately challenge the very foundations of European society. Breathe in the excitement of discovery. Feel the anticipation that comes with encountering something entirely new, something that will change everything you thought you knew. The first Europeans to taste tea approach it with the same mixture of curiosity and suspicion that greets any foreign innovation. The flavor is unlike anything in European experience, neither the familiar comfort of ale and wine, nor the bitter intensity of coffee, which has only recently arrived from the Ottoman Empire. Tea requires its own category, its own vocabulary, its own customs and rituals, but those who persist in their exploration of this strange new beverage quickly discover something remarkable. Unlike wine, which clouds the mind, or coffee, which can create agitation, tea seems to offer the best of both worlds: mental clarity without nervousness, social lubrication without intoxication, energy without the crash that follows other stimulants. Notice your own curiosity awakening. Feel how the mind naturally seeks to understand and categorize new experiences, how openness to the unfamiliar can lead to unexpected discoveries. In the royal courts of Europe, tea becomes first a curiosity, then a fashion, and finally an obsession. The ritual of afternoon tea provides an elegant solution to a social problem: the long gap between the light midday meal and the substantial evening dinner. But more than mere sustenance, the tea ceremony offers something that European society desperately needs: a structured opportunity for refined conversation, for the display of good manners, for the cultivation of taste and discrimination. The elaborate tea services that develop in European courts bear little resemblance to the austere simplicity of Japanese ceremony or the meditative focus of Chinese tradition. European tea culture is about display, about demonstrating wealth and refinement through the fineness of porcelain, the elegance of silver, the variety of delicate foods that accompany the tea. Yet beneath this surface elaboration, the essential gifts of tea continue to operate. Even the most ostentatious European tea party creates moments of pause, opportunities for presence, spaces where conversation can move beyond the merely transactional to touch on matters of genuine human interest and concern. Feel how authentic practice can maintain its essential power even when clothed in unfamiliar cultural forms. How the heart of tea's gift transcends any particular style of ceremony or service. The British, with their genius for taking foreign innovations and making them thoroughly their own, embrace tea with an enthusiasm that ultimately surpasses even that of its Chinese originators. By the 18th century, tea has become so central to British identity that it's difficult to imagine British culture without it. The British developed their own distinctive approach to tea preparation, adding milk and sugar in combinations that would horrify Chinese purists, but that create an entirely new category of tea experience. The robust flavor of black teas, processed in ways that increase their strength and durability, proves perfectly suited to these additions, creating a beverage that is both comforting and invigorating, both familiar and exotic. Allow yourself to taste this transformation. Notice how innovation often comes from combining traditions in unexpected ways. How authenticity can express itself in forms that would surprise the originators. The afternoon tea tradition that develops in British society becomes more than just a meal. It becomes a social institution that shapes the rhythm of daily life. At 4 o'clock, across the British Isles, activity pauses. Conversations begin. Connections are renewed over cups of perfectly brewed tea and delicate sandwiches cut into precise triangles. This is tea's gift expressing itself in yet another cultural form, the creation of sacred time in secular society. The establishment of ritual that brings people together in appreciation of simple pleasures, the transformation of ordinary moments into occasions for genuine human connection. But the British relationship with tea also reveals the shadow side of this global expansion. The enormous demand for tea drives the development of colonial plantations, creates economic pressures that lead to exploitation, ultimately contributes to conflicts and injustices that will take generations to resolve. Feel the complexity in this expansion. Recognize how even the most beautiful innovations can carry within them the seeds of both blessing and challenge. How consciousness and compassion must guide our engagement with tradition. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 demonstrates tea's power to become a symbol, a focal point for political and cultural tensions. When American colonists dumped chests of tea into Boston Harbor, they are rejecting more than just a beverage. They are refusing a particular relationship to authority, asserting their right to choose their own path, using tea as the medium through which to express their deepest convictions about freedom and self-determination. Yet even as tea becomes a symbol of political conflict, its essential nature continues to work its quiet magic. In colonial American homes, despite the political tensions, families continue to gather around the tea table, to find in the shared ritual a moment of peace and connection that transcends the turbulence of their historical moment. Notice how authentic traditions possess a resilience that allows them to survive even the most challenging circumstances. how the deepest human needs will always find expression, regardless of political or cultural obstacles. As tea spreads throughout European and American society, it begins to influence architecture and design. Tea gardens are created, spaces specifically designed for the leisurely consumption of tea in beautiful natural settings. Tea services become more elaborate and specialized, with different cups for different teas, different implements for different stages of preparation, different furniture designed specifically to support the tea ritual. The very pace of life begins to change in response to tea culture. The quick gulp of ale or spirits gives way to the leisurely sipping of tea. The rushed consumption of food yields to the deliberate enjoyment of tea and accompanying delicacies. The functional approach to eating and drinking evolves into something approaching art. Feel this slowing down, this elevation of the everyday into something worthy of attention and appreciation. Notice how tea naturally teaches us to be more present to our experience. In the drawing rooms and salons of Europe, tea becomes the catalyst for intellectual and cultural exchange. Writers gather to share their latest works over tea. Philosophers debate the great questions of their age while sipping from delicate porcelain cups. Artists and musicians find in tea culture both inspiration for their work and an appreciative audience for their creations. The combination of mental stimulation without intoxication makes tea the perfect beverage for serious conversation, for the kind of extended dialogue that can lead to genuine insight and understanding. Unlike alcohol, which can make people either too aggressive or too passive for productive discourse, tea creates a state of relaxed alertness that seems perfectly designed for intellectual and creative collaboration. Allow yourself to enter this state of relaxed alertness. Feel how tea can create the optimal conditions for learning, creativity, and meaningful exchange with others. But perhaps the most significant development in European tea culture is its democratization. What begins as a luxury for the wealthy gradually becomes accessible to the middle classes, and eventually to working people who find in tea an affordable luxury that brings beauty and refinement into even the humblest circumstances. The British cuppa, the simple, unpretentious cup of tea that becomes a daily ritual for millions of ordinary people, represents tea's ultimate victory over elitism and exclusivity. No elaborate ceremony is required, no expensive equipment, no special knowledge or training. Just hot water, tea leaves, perhaps a bit of milk and sugar, and the willingness to pause for a moment in the midst of life's demands. Feel the democratic power of this simple ritual. Recognize how the most profound practices are those that can be embraced by anyone, regardless of their circumstances or background. As we move into the 18th and 19th centuries, tea culture in the West continues to evolve and adapt. The Industrial Revolution brings new methods of processing and packaging tea, making it more widely available and affordable. The expansion of global trade networks brings new varieties of tea to Western markets, creating opportunities for experimentation and blending that would have been impossible in earlier eras. Yet through all these changes, the essential character of tea remains constant. It continues to create moments of pause in an increasingly frenetic world, to provide opportunities for connection in an increasingly fragmented society, to offer comfort and clarity in times of stress and uncertainty. Chapter 7. The Colonial Gardens. Let your awareness drift now to the misty highlands of Ceylon, to the terraced hills of Darjeeling, to the vast plantations of Assam, where tea has taken root in new soil and begun to express itself in forms that would astonish its Chinese ancestors The transformation of tea from a Chinese monopoly to a global commodity is one of the great economic and cultural stories of the modern era. Yet beneath the surface of trade statistics and colonial politics lies a deeper story. The story of how tea adapts to new environments while maintaining its essential character, how human intention and natural conditions collaborate to create new expressions of ancient wisdom. Breathe in the high-altitude air of these mountain gardens. Feel the morning mist that will soon lift to reveal endless rows of tea bushes reaching toward the horizon. In the highlands of Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, tea encounters conditions unlike anything it has known before. The volcanic soil is rich in minerals, the climate is tropical yet cooled by altitude. The seasonal patterns are governed by monsoons rather than the gentle transitions of Chinese weather. Yet tea proves remarkably adaptable, developing new characteristics that reflect these new conditions while retaining its essential nature. James Taylor, a young Scottish planter, stands at the edge of his experimental tea garden in 1867, watching the morning sun burn away the mist that clings to his carefully tended bushes. He has spent years learning to read the signs, understanding how the tea plants respond to different treatments, discovering which processing methods work best with the unique characteristics of Ceylon-grown leaf. Feel the dedication required for this kind of pioneering work. Notice how mastery develops through patient attention to subtle details, how innovation emerges from the marriage of respect for tradition and willingness to experiment. The tea that emerges from these Ceylon gardens is distinctly different from its Chinese ancestors. The flavor is brighter, more robust, capable of standing up to the milk and sugar that have become standard in British tea culture. The color is deeper, more brilliant, the aroma more pronounced. Yet it retains tea's essential gifts, the ability to refresh without overstimulation, to clarify the mind while calming the nerves. In the mountains of Darjeeling, tea encounters yet another unique environment. The high altitude and dramatic temperature variations between day and night create stress conditions that force the tea plants to concentrate their essence, producing leaves with an intensity and complexity that rivals the finest wines. The first flush of spring growth yields tea with a delicate muscatel flavor, while the second flush develops the full-bodied character that has made Darjeeling famous throughout the world. Allow yourself to taste these subtle variations. Notice how the same plant can express entirely different aspects of its nature depending on the conditions it encounters. How challenge can lead to the development of extraordinary character. The gardens of Assam tell yet another story. Here, in the lowlands near the Brahmaputra River, grows a variety of tea plant that is actually indigenous to the region, a cousin of the Chinese tea plant but with its own distinct characteristics. The leaves are larger, the flavor more malty and robust, perfectly suited to the hearty breakfast teas that will become a staple of British and American morning routines. But the development of these colonial tea gardens involves more than just agricultural innovation. It requires the creation of entirely new social and economic structures, the training of local workers in processing techniques that had been guarded Chinese secrets for millennia, the establishment of transportation networks that can move delicate tea leaves from remote mountain gardens to global markets. Recognize the complexity of this transformation. Feel both the excitement of innovation and the awareness of the human costs often involved in such dramatic change. The processing facilities that develop in these colonial gardens represent a fusion of traditional Chinese techniques with European engineering and organization. Steam-powered machinery takes over some of the more laborious aspects of tea processing, while skilled workers, many of them trained by Chinese masters who have been persuaded to share their knowledge, oversee the critical steps that determine the tea's final character. The withering of fresh leaves, the rolling that breaks cell walls and begins oxidation, the fermentation that develops flavor and color, the firing that stops oxidation at precisely the right moment. Each step requires judgment and timing that cannot be fully mechanized. The best teas still depend on human sensitivity, on workers who can feel the moisture content of leaves with their hands, who can judge oxidation by aroma, who can determine firing time by the sound the leaves make as they dry. Appreciate the irreplaceable value of human skill and intuition. Notice how even in an age of mechanization, the finest results still require conscious attention and developed sensitivity. As these new tea-growing regions mature, they begin to develop their own distinct cultures and traditions. The tea workers of Ceylon create their own songs and rituals around the harvest, finding in the rhythm of picking and processing a form of meditation and community building. The gardens of Darjeeling develop their own seasonal celebrations, marking the first flush of spring and the peak harvest of summer with festivals that honor both the tea and the workers who tend it. These new traditions represent tea's continuing evolution, its ability to inspire fresh expressions of human creativity while maintaining its essential function as a bridge between the mundane and the sacred. Even in the context of commercial agriculture, tea retains its power to create community, to mark significant moments, to provide opportunities for appreciation and celebration. Feel how authentic traditions continue to emerge wherever tea takes root. Notice how the essential spirit of tea expresses itself in forms appropriate to each new cultural context. The blending houses that develop in London, Edinburgh, and other centers of the tea trade represent yet another innovation in tea culture. Master blenders learn to combine teas from different regions and seasons, creating consistent flavors that can be reproduced year after year, developing new taste profiles that appeal to specific markets and preferences. This art of blending requires a palate as refined as that of any wine master, the ability to taste subtle differences between hundreds of different teas, the knowledge of how different teas will interact when combined, the understanding of how processing and storage affect flavor development over time. Yet the best blenders understand that their craft is not about imposing arbitrary flavors, but about revealing the inherent potential in each tea, about creating combinations that enhance rather than mask the essential character of the components, about finding the perfect balance that allows each element to contribute to a harmonious whole. Consider how this principle of harmonious blending might apply to other aspects of life, how the art of combination can create results that transcend the sum of their parts. As the 19th century progresses, these colonial tea gardens become not just agricultural enterprises but cultural institutions in their own right. They attract visitors from around the world who come to witness the tea-making process, to experience the beauty of the mountain gardens, to participate in the daily rhythms of harvest and processing that connect them to the ancient tradition of tea. Travel writers describe the almost mystical experience of walking through tea gardens at sunrise, of watching skilled pickers move through the rows with a grace that seems almost choreographed, of witnessing the transformation of fresh green leaves into the dried product that will bring pleasure to millions of people around the world. Allow yourself to experience this mystical quality. Feel the profound satisfaction that comes from witnessing skilled work performed with care and attention, from seeing the transformation of raw material into something that will nourish and delight. But perhaps the most significant development in this era is the gradual recognition that tea quality depends not just on processing techniques, but on the entire ecosystem in which the plants grow. The best tea gardens begin to pay attention to soil health, to the insects and birds that help maintain natural balance, to the forest cover that provides protection from wind and extreme weather. This holistic approach to tea cultivation represents a return to the ecological wisdom that characterized the earliest Chinese tea gardens. The understanding that tea is not just an agricultural crop but part of a living system that must be maintained in balance if it is to continue producing its gifts indefinitely. Feel the wisdom in this ecological approach. Recognize how true sustainability requires attention to the whole system, how the best human activities work in harmony with rather than against natural patterns. From these colonial gardens, tea continues its global journey, adapting to new climates and cultures, inspiring new innovations in processing and presentation, proving once again that authentic traditions possess the flexibility to evolve while maintaining their essential character. Chapter 8: The Modern Renaissance. Allow your consciousness to flow forward through time, past the industrial smokestacks and factory whistles of the 19th century, through the rapid changes of the 20th century, arriving in our contemporary world where tea is experiencing a remarkable renaissance, where ancient wisdom meets modern understanding in ways that would astound the early tea masters. In laboratories and research facilities around the world, scientists are discovering what tea drinkers have known intuitively for thousands of years: that this simple beverage contains compounds that can profoundly affect human health and consciousness. The polyphenol that give tea its slightly astringent taste are powerful antioxidants. The amino acid L-theanine creates the unique state of calm alertness that tea drinkers have always treasured. The carefully balanced caffeine content provides energy without the jitters associated with coffee. Feel the excitement of rediscovery. Notice how modern science often confirms what traditional wisdom has always known. How different ways of knowing can complement and enrich each other. Dr. Sarah Chun stands in her laboratory at UC Berkeley, examining the molecular structure of tea compounds under powerful microscopes. Her research is revealing how these ancient molecules interact with human neurochemistry, how they cross the blood-brain barrier to influence neurotransmitter production, how they support the kind of focused, relaxed attention that meditation teachers have sought to cultivate for millennia. But Dr. Chen's work goes beyond mere chemical analysis. She is exploring how the ritual aspects of tea preparation and consumption enhance its beneficial effects, how the act of mindful brewing and drinking can amplify tea's natural properties, how the social context of tea sharing creates psychological and physiological benefits that go far beyond the beverage itself. Allow yourself to appreciate this integration of scientific and traditional knowledge. Feel how understanding the mechanisms doesn't diminish the mystery, how knowledge can enhance rather than replace wonder. In specialty tea shops from San Francisco to London to Tokyo, a new generation of tea enthusiasts is rediscovering the depth and complexity that industrial tea processing had obscured. These modern tea lovers approach their practice with the same dedication that wine connoisseurs bring to their passion, learning to distinguish between different terroirs, understanding how processing methods affect flavor development, developing palates capable of appreciating subtle variations that would have been lost on earlier generations of casual tea drinkers. Yet this renaissance is not merely about returning to old ways. It represents a conscious integration of the best of both traditional and modern approaches, combining ancient wisdom about tea's spiritual and social functions with contemporary understanding of health benefits and quality control. using modern transportation and communication to make the finest teas available to anyone with the interest and dedication to appreciate them. Feel the creative energy in this integration. Notice how authentic Renaissance always involves both recovery of lost wisdom and innovation for new circumstances. The tea ceremony traditions of different cultures are experiencing their own revival and evolution. Young Japanese people who had drifted away from traditional tea ceremony are returning with fresh appreciation for its mindfulness training and aesthetic discipline. Chinese gongfu cha brewing is spreading far beyond China as people discover the meditative qualities of this focused, repetitive practice. British afternoon tea is being reimagined by creative chefs who honor tradition while incorporating contemporary culinary innovations. But perhaps most significantly, entirely new tea traditions are emerging, hybrid practices that draw from multiple cultural sources while addressing the specific needs and circumstances of contemporary life. Urban tea lounges create spaces for contemplation and connection in the midst of busy city life. Workplace tea ceremonies provide stress relief and team building in corporate environments. Therapeutic tea sessions use the beverage as a medium for healing and personal growth. Appreciate this creative adaptation. Feel how living traditions must evolve to remain relevant while maintaining their essential gifts. How innovation and preservation can work together rather than in opposition. The organic and fair trade tea movements represent another important development in tea's modern renaissance. Consumers are increasingly concerned not just with the quality and flavor of their tea, but with the conditions under which it was grown and processed, the wages paid to tea workers, the environmental impact of tea cultivation, the sustainability of traditional growing regions. This consciousness represents a return to the holistic understanding that characterized the earliest tea gardens, the recognition that the quality of tea cannot be separated from the health of the entire system that produces it, that the best tea comes from gardens where plants, soil, workers, and community all thrive in harmonious relationship. Feel the interconnectedness that this awareness reveals. Notice how conscious consumption can become a form of spiritual practice, how our choices as consumers can support systems that honor both human dignity and environmental health. Technology is also transforming tea culture in unexpected ways. Precision brewing devices allow home tea enthusiasts to control water temperature and steeping time with scientific accuracy. Online communities connect tea lovers from around the world in shared appreciation and learning. Mobile apps help people develop their palates by tracking their tasting notes and preferences over time. Yet the most successful technological innovations are those that support rather than replace the fundamental human elements of tea culture. The best brewing devices simplify technique while encouraging mindful attention to the process. Online tea communities facilitate genuine relationships and knowledge sharing rather than superficial social media interactions. Digital tools help people become more conscious and appreciative drinkers rather than passive consumers. Recognize how technology can serve consciousness when used skillfully. Notice how the best innovations support rather than replace authentic human connection and awareness. In hospitals and therapeutic settings, healthcare providers are rediscovering tea's healing properties. Cancer treatment centers offer tea ceremony as a form of stress reduction and community building for patients and families. Meditation teachers use tea preparation as a form of mindfulness training. Therapists incorporate tea rituals into their practice as a way of creating safe, nurturing space for difficult conversations. This therapeutic use of tea represents a return to its earliest applications in Chinese medicine, but informed by modern understanding of psychology and neuroscience. creating approaches that are both scientifically grounded and spiritually nourishing. The global tea industry itself is undergoing transformation as small-scale producers gain access to international markets, as consumers become more interested in single-estate teas with distinct character and provenance, as traditional growing regions work to balance commercial success with environmental stewardship and cultural preservation. Feel the hope in these developments. Appreciate how global trade can support rather than exploit traditional cultures when conducted with consciousness and respect. Perhaps most importantly, this modern renaissance is characterized by a deepening understanding of tea's essential gift, its ability to create moments of presence and connection in an increasingly fragmented and accelerated world. Whether expressed through elaborate ceremony or simple daily ritual, whether understood through scientific analysis or mystical experience, whether practiced alone or in community, tea continues to offer what it has always offered: a doorway into the present moment, an invitation to slow down and pay attention, a reminder that the most profound satisfaction often comes from the simplest practices. Allow yourself to feel connected to this great tradition. Recognize that every time you mindfully prepare and drink tea, you participate in an unbroken chain of human experience that spans cultures and centuries. As we conclude this journey through tea's remarkable history, let yourself rest in appreciation for this simple miracle. This leaf that has traveled the world and adapted to countless cultures while retaining its essential character. This beverage that continues to offer exactly what each generation needs: presence, peace, connection, and the profound satisfaction that comes from taking time to truly taste and appreciate the gifts that life offers in each moment. Take a deep breath. Feel the peace that comes from this understanding, and know that wherever you are, whenever you next brew and drink tea mindfully, you carry forward this ancient wisdom, this timeless gift, this simple path to presence and appreciation that is always as close as your next cup. Closing the eternal cup. As our journey draws to a close, let yourself settle into the profound peace that comes from understanding. Feel the connections that now link you to every tea drinker across time and space, to the Chinese emperor who first tasted that miraculous leaf, to the Buddhist monks who made it sacred, to the Persian merchants who carried it across desert and mountain, to the Japanese masters who refined it into perfect art, to all who have found in tea's gentle gift a pathway to presence and peace. The story of tea is ultimately the story of human consciousness itself. The endless quest to find meaning and connection in simple experiences, to discover the sacred within the ordinary, to create rituals and practices that nourish not just the body but the soul. In every cup of tea you will ever drink lies this entire history, this accumulated wisdom of countless generations who understood that taking time to brew and drink tea mindfully is taking time to honor life itself, to appreciate the intricate web of relationships that makes any experience possible, to participate in the great communion of conscious beings seeking peace and understanding. Feel yourself now as part of this eternal tradition. Know that your own mindful engagement with tea adds to the wisdom, contributes to the peace, helps carry forward this precious gift to future generations who will discover in their own cups the same timeless truths that have nourished seekers throughout history. When you next hold a cup of tea in your hands, feel its warmth, breathe its aroma, taste its complexity. Remember this journey we have taken together. Remember that you hold in your hands not just a beverage, but the essence of mountains and rain and sunshine, the skill of countless hands, the wisdom of ancient traditions, the love of all who have recognized in tea a gateway to the present moment. Let the final sip be savored slowly. Let it remind you that every ending is also a beginning, that every conclusion opens into new possibilities, that the journey of tea, like the journey of consciousness itself, is never truly finished but continues to unfold in each moment of appreciation, each gesture of gratitude, each cup shared with awareness and love. And now, as you return to your ordinary day, carry with you this extraordinary understanding that the path to peace and presence is always as close as your next breath, your next conscious moment, your next cup of tea prepared and drunk with full attention and deep appreciation for the miracle of being alive, aware, and connected to the vast web of existence that makes every simple pleasure possible. Rest now in this knowledge. Rest in this peace. Rest in the eternal cup that is always being offered, always being shared, always available to nourish the deepest parts of your being. The journey continues with every cup, with every breath, with every moment of conscious appreciation. The story never ends. It only deepens, like the perfect cup of tea that seems to contain within it all the wisdom of the ages, all the peace of the present moment, all the love that connects every conscious being in the eternal dance of existence. And so, with gratitude for this journey we have shared, with appreciation for the ancient wisdom we have touched, with commitment to carrying forward this gift of presence and peace, we close this chapter, knowing that the next one begins whenever you choose to brew your next cup, to drink it mindfully, to taste in it all the wonder and wisdom that we have discovered together on this timeless journey from sacred leaf to global ritual, from simple beverage to pathway home.